Good morning, everybody, and welcome to MacroPro and Friends. I'm Diane Cohen, Vice President of Education and Client Services at MacroPro, and I'm joined by my colleague, Wendy Stevens. Hello, Wendy. How are you?
Hi, Diane. I'm doing well. How are you today?
I am fantastic. We are getting close to the end of our 12 CEUs of Christmas. We have 4 more, including this one. So we have 2 today and 2 on Friday. So it's going to be a nice way to wrap up the working week for everybody. So you've been busy. What have you been doing for your clients?
Well, I have co-hosted with a couple of vendors from my in-person MacroPro and Friends, and we've been doing some virtual holiday bingo for clients that I can't get to. I'm a little sidelined until the first of the year, but so we came up with this fabulous game, and we play bingo and have raffle prizes and game prizes, and it's just so much fun. We just absolutely have a blast, and then everybody gets their prize in a couple of days, and it's all good.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Now, the holidays are here, and we've been talking about all kinds of different things. So today, I want to ask everybody a question and see if you guys would respond. And I'm going to start with Wendy. Can you tell me if you are a Christmas card sender or not?
I am. I do send Christmas cards. I'm one of those people who likes to take a family picture or pull one out of the archives, and then I just send off the Christmas cards. And I make a Christmas card for my parents every year, and so they can send Christmas cards. And when I make those cards for my parents, I always have to put the dog in there somewhere.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, everybody, let's see. Do you guys Christmas card or don't you Christmas card? Go ahead and put that into the question box there so we can see it. It says, I enjoy it, though. I can't read that whole thing there. I enjoy the thought of being one, but not. I'm with her completely. I am 50% of the time I send cards and the other 50% I don't. And this is one of those I don't years, and I feel horrible about it. Terry says she doesn't. Stacy says she doesn't. Jesse says yes. Kyle says nope. So Shane says yes. I love to receive them. Oh, don't we all? I'm with Laura there. Love to receive them, but I understand why you wouldn't send one to me if I didn't send one to you. So I get that.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go ahead and keep putting those in. We love reading them. I'm going to start by doing a little bit of housekeeping, and then Wendy's going to be introducing our guest. So just as a reminder, you will be receiving 1 hour of CEU credits for California. You should receive that in 1 hour. However, we're finding it's taking days for some of the firewalls to release those certificates. So don't worry if you're not seeing it in a couple days. It's probably just your company's firewalls that are holding it back for a bit. If you have any questions for our experts, please put it in the chat, into the question box, and we will be sure to ask them of that. We have handouts for this program, so please be sure to download those. And then lastly, if you want to see this program again, it will be on the MacroPro YouTube channel. So I'm going to turn it over to Wendy now. Thank you, Wendy, for co-hosting with me today.
Thank you, Diane, for having me. It's so much fun. Today we have a special treat in store for you. We have Jan Saunders with Paradigm. He's a clinical director, and he is going to talk about what he knows best. And we have Darcy Bowler, who is going to share with us a little bit of information about Jan and what it is that they do at Paradigm. Darcy, take it away.
Hello, everyone. I think Jan has a slideshow, right? Jan, are you on here?
Yep, you got it?
Yep, I got it. So I wanted to say hello and happy holidays to everyone. I am Darcy Bowler. I am the sales executive for Paradigm, and the services that I cover are, of course, your home health, anything inside the home, RNs, LPNs, LVNs, any kind of caregiver, DME and medical supplies, home and vehicle modifications, prosthetics and orthotics, which Jan will talk about, and post-acute care facilities. And we're nationwide with all of our services. We also have case management solutions, which would be field case management, telephonic, vocational, 24/7 nurse triage. We can do a task assignment and also ergo and evals. So I'm going to hand it over to Jan Saunders. He's going to talk about orthotics and prosthetics. And if you have any questions, we can answer all those questions at the end. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Darcy. Let me just. Thank you, everybody, for allowing me into your homes today and into your offices to talk about a subject that I have been passionate about for well over 40 years, which is prosthetics and orthotics. I think it's important that I give you a little bit of my background because I think that's what is going to bring the credibility to the discussion that we're going to have today. I've been in prosthetics and orthotics well over 40 years. I have owned many offices that have been sold to publicly held entities. And before joining Paradigm, I was the president of the second largest prosthetics and orthotics company in the country. And why is that important? Well, it's important because I know how to maximize the revenue in prosthetics. I know where things are hidden. I know where prosthetic facilities may use what we call as junk codes, which are other unlisted codes, and other unlisted codes. HCPCS means that there's no state fee schedules and there's no Medicare fee schedules for those. So you may ask yourself, well, then how do they know what to charge? Well, they know what to charge because they just grab the number out of the air, okay? And because the most prosthetic orthotic facilities are getting hurt financially on the commercial side of insurance, guess what? Workers' comp is the best payer source out there. So they're looking to make up anything that they can in workers' comp. And so we keep an eye on things to make sure that everything that is there is appropriate. One thing that I want to point out to you all is that on this slide is my my direct office number, my mobile number, my email, whether you're making referral or not, whether you just want to discuss something, bounce it off me to see whether something's working right or it's not. Feel free to call me, email me. I'm very responsive. And of course, there's no charge for doing those things. To get started, it can't be understated what a amputee goes through losing their limb. And this is not just like on workers' comp. Behind every claim, there's a whole village. There's the adjusters, the case managers, the claim managers, the defense attorney, the claimant attorney. So there's a whole village of people behind. Well, with an injured worker, they go through a normal grieving process, losing a limb. And it doesn't matter whether it's an arm or a leg, okay? What we do is we need to reach out and support them as early as we can. And let me tell you a good way to do that. If you take anything away from this talk today, I want it to be early intervention. Early intervention is the key to managing the cost drivers and to managing successful care of the injured worker. And here's why. Let's say that you have a crushing injury. Somebody's leg gets crushed. And your nurse case manager out there is being told by the doctor, we're trying to save his leg, but we're not sure we're going to be able to. That's the perfect time to get us involved. And why is that? Well, because I myself have made over 14,000 prosthetic devices. I've been there at this moment with amputees at the time of surgery, in surgery with them doing a prosthesis. And we can actually reduce their anxiety because these people, the fears that they have are tremendous. They're worried, am I going to be able to walk again? Am I going to be able to return to my life? Am I going to be able to support my family? Is my wife and family going to love me because I don't look the same anymore? We can bring all of that into perspective, let them know what the average wait times are, that from the time that they're casted, how long should it be before they get a prosthesis, what type of prosthesis is appropriate for them. And so we can really reduce their anxiety. And I can tell you, out of the hundreds of pre-amputation consults that I've had with these injured workers, every single one of them says, I feel so much better now that I talked to you, and I'm not afraid going into this surgery. So that's something to think about. One of the things that we do is, and a lot of times the physicians just don't think about this, is let's say that we have this lady here is wearing what's called as a limb guard. A limb guard, as you see down at the bottom, it's white, and that's a hard plastic. All the black is just padding and Velcro, so it goes on quick, comes off quick. You don't have to worry about infections because it only takes a matter of 10, 15 seconds to put it on or take it off. The reason that we recommend these to the physicians, because we're corresponding and talking with the doctors as well, is that about 40% of all below knee amputees are going to fall within the first 90 days. And so what happens is, why do they fall? Well, let's say that somebody's sleeping and they get up in the middle of the night because they have to use the bathroom. Their mind is a little bit in the fog, and so they don't remember that they don't have a leg there until they stand up and go to take a step and then realize it's not there and it's too late, because they fall so quickly that the end of the residual limb hits the floor and splits open. When that happens, you're probably looking at a revision surgery that can cost $50,000 to $70,000. You're also looking that now that it's opened back up, the doctor can't just sew everything back together. It has to heal from the inside out. And that's going to take probably 3 months, maybe 4, depending on their other physical condition. But that's extra 3 to 4 months of wage loss, and it's an additional surgery. This limb guard is about $700. Every single time that I've recommended it to the physician, he says that's a great idea. And even if they're just wearing it in bed, because after amputation surgery, they're very tender, that takes a while to go away. If they bump into their partner or bang the bed, it really hurts because those nerves are real sensitive. So wearing this limb guard takes all that away and makes it a lot more comfortable for them. The other thing that we want to do is we want to get them into a shrinking program as quickly as possible. The picture on the right is ACE wraps, and ACE wraps work very well. They're not expensive, but the problem with an ACE wrap is that it has to be rewrapped every 2 hours by somebody who knows how to wrap it. You just don't wrap around in circles. And if you look at this picture, you can see that everything's done in a figure 8 with these V's, okay? A amputee sitting on the couch, laying in bed, sitting in a wheelchair, they have micro motions of their knees, and as that happens, it shifts the wrap, and it'll start to choke up on top and get looser at the bottom, and then they swell back up. So the picture on the right are called shrinkers. And the shrinkers are a great idea. It goes on just like a sock would go on. It's nothing more than a gradient compression hose. And so it slides up as the injured worker starts to shrink down. It keeps uniform compression. And by keeping that compression on, and we try to get these on patients maybe 2 days after surgery, 3 days after surgery, if the surgeon will allow it. And they get 2 so that if one gets soiled, they can wash it while they're wearing the other one. And they wear these 23 hours a day. By reducing the amount of swelling post-operatively in the residual limb, you're also reducing the amount of pain that they're having. Because as they're swelling, they're pushing up against the sides of the nerve endings, which are very irritated. Once we remove a lot of that fluid and post-operative swelling, they get a little more comfortable. Not totally, but a little more. This picture that you're seeing here is with and without a cover. One thing that I can tell you that I'm really pleased to see after all the years I've been in the field, in about the past 10 years, people no longer are wanting to wear a prosthesis that looks like a leg. They're wearing their legs like a badge of courage. And I think that happens because of the TV commercials and the TV shows where they show people and they're wearing a prosthesis, and you see this black graphite futuristic looking device. And so I think that that's really a step psychosocially in having them to help move forward. Okay, but what I want to tell you about these is that no prosthesis is a permanent prosthesis. Okay, they're always going to need to be changed. Every prosthesis, whether it's an upper extremity prosthesis or lower extremity prosthesis, will last on an average of 4 to 5 years under normal wear and tear. At that time, you can bank on having to replace the entire prosthesis. Now, we do, and it's at no cost to anybody, we do life cost projections. So if you had somebody on early intervention that you needed to get some funds in reserves set up quickly, we can give you what's called as a guesstimate based on the injury, the age, what we expect, and generally they're fairly close. But then when the injured worker gets his prosthesis, then we can revise that to a permanent projection so that you have it so you can adjust reserves as you move along. Setting the life at 4 to 5 years. Feet, all feet have manufacturer warranties on them that are generally about 3 years. The thing that has to be changed more often is the part that you see to the left up on top, the clear socket. Sockets need to be changed when they no longer fit. And so shrinkage, atrophy are all related to subcutaneous tissue. So if you have somebody who weighs 300 pounds, they're going to shrink 3 times faster than somebody who's 100 pounds. So if you have somebody who's really large, they may go through 2 or 3 of the socket replacements in the first year. And then as time goes on and their residual limb shrinks and stays small, it gets less often, okay? But when I'm going to show you in a few minutes, you're going to see what we call our stump socks. Socks are like shim socks, and they come different thicknesses, and that adjusts them into a prosthesis. Very similar to people who wear dentures. When they first get the dentures, they're really, really tight in their mouth. And then after a little while, they start getting a little loose, and they have to put creams or liners in there to make them tight again. That's what the stump socks do. And when a injured worker gets to be over 10 ply of socks, they're going to be needing a socket replacement. The socket replacement generally are going to be about 50% of the cost of the entire prosthesis, barring any really sophisticated componentry. So generally, I would expect from a injured worker's first prosthesis that within 3 to 6 months, they're going to need a socket replacement because it's not going to fit anymore. And that's really nobody's fault. That's normal process of muscle atrophy that takes place. The hard components that you see in the picture on the left, those components are made of titanium. That is what's going to last for 4 to 5 years. Feet, when we have somebody who has a foot, because a lot of times we get requests for somebody wants a different foot. Well, and we look at wants versus needs. Is it going to make a significant functional change? Okay, so the only reason that a foot would need to be changed while the warranty is still in effect is if the patient's weight increases significantly enough to take it outside of the manufacturer's specifications for that foot. Meaning these feet are made of carbon graphite. They're made according to weight categories and activity levels. So if we have somebody, let's say when they get their first leg and they weigh 200 pounds, and now we're 6 months down the road or a year down the road, and now they weigh 250 pounds, that they may be exceeding the weight limitation of that foot. And the last thing we want to happen is for that foot to fail, because if that happens, they're going to go down hard and fast. So those are the only times you should receive a request for a new foot. When it comes to somebody who's an above the knee amputee, the sockets, which is the top part, you can see they come all the way up in the groin. They fit very, very intimately. And we have people who wear standard mechanical knee prostheses, and you have ones who wear microprocessors. As you see, the foot's the same, the socket's the same, the knee component is the big difference. And so when we evaluate whether somebody should be in a standard knee or a microprocessor knee, all right, the way that that's done is there's tests called AMP-PRO tests. There are ones that are assigned what are called K-levels. K-levels determine what the potential of amputees are. So if you have a K1 or a K2, those are going to be sedentary workers. Those are going to be the people who they walk at the same speed all the time. They're sitting around on the couch or at their desk all the time. They're really not doing a lot of high activity functions. Whereas, and so what happens is that the friction, which determines how far does the foot come back and how fast does it get back out in front to be fully extended, so that when they put their weight on it, it's safe. That's done in the prosthetist's office when they're being fitted. So if you've ever seen somebody walking with a prosthesis and they seem to be walking and hesitating before the next step or hopping a little bit, that's because they're in a standard mechanical prosthesis and they should be in a microprocessor. Standard knee units are going to start off at about $5,000 and they're going to go up to about $15,000. That's just for the knee unit, not the rest of the prosthesis. On microprocessors, these are made for people who change speeds walking. They'll walk fast, then they walk slow, and they'll go up and down stairs foot over foot. They go up and down ramps. They can transverse most environmental barriers. So people who get microprocessors qualify as a K3 or a K4. The difference between K3 and K4 is your K4 is more of your athlete. These knees, and unfortunately for workers' comp, that most people in workers' comp wind up in microprocessor knees. Simply the reason is they were healthy, very active people before their amputation. And once they get this prosthesis, they're going to be able to run. They're going to be able to go downstairs foot over foot. They're going to be able to be highly active, ride a bike, okay? Microprocessors, knee unit only, is going to start off at about $35,000, and it's going to go all the way up to about $120,000 just for the knee units. And I'll explain why in a minute. This just shows all the different components that are comprise a prosthesis, different ways to hold them on, whether it's suction or elevated vacuum, pin systems. There's many different ways, and the local prosthetist will determine what he thinks is the best suspension mechanism based on the shape and condition of the residual limb. These are just 5 knees that I'm showing you. The one to the far left, from the middle to the far left, are your mechanical ones that we spoke about. These are going to be the ones that are going to be from about the $5,000 to $15,000 mark. The 2 on the right, and there's probably about 30 different knees available, but these are just 5 of the most common used. The ones on the right, is the gray one is called a Rio. It's a very good knee. That's going to start off at about $35,000. That's going to allow the amputee to run. It's going to allow him to go down the stairs foot over foot. And it's a very safe knee. The most common one used today is called the genium. And for anybody who's been around for a long time and they've heard of a thing called the C-leg now is for your elderly active person, and the genium has taken the place of that. So this is for your injured worker who is very active or expected to be very active. And just like any manufacturer does, they have the genium, it's very successful. They come out with the with the better one than that. And that's called the Genium X3. Now, the genium, just so you know, is going to be about $80,000. The Genium X3 is about $120,000. And what's the difference? They both, you can run up and down stairs, you can do anything, and they both function exactly the same. The difference is that the X3 is waterproof, but it's only waterproof for 30 minutes at 3 meters. That, to spend an extra $35,000, $40,000 for a half hour just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but there are some cases where it makes sense. But I will tell you that most of the providers today, they're not asking for the genium anymore. They're asking for the X3 because the X3 has the highest return profit-wise for them. All microprocessors have extended warranties from the manufacturer, not from the facility where they got it. So they all carry 3-year warranties. And if, you know, it's a computer inside there. So sometimes, just like your laptop, there may be a little glitch, you may have a little problem, it may break down. If that happens, you don't need to have a backup leg. All the injured worker does is calls his prosthetist, say, my unit's not working. It doesn't mean that they'll fall down. It just means it's going to get really stiff for them, so it's not going to function properly. And so the manufacturer will overnight a loaner unit to the facility for the next day, and it takes about 10 to 15 minutes to upload all of the data that's in one into the new one. So that's a good caveat. Also, what I recommend is that I said that the life cycle is about 4 to 5 years. Okay, so if the warranty is only 3 years and you're talking about $80,000, for another $14,000, you protect yourself against another $80,000 loss for another 3 years, which gives you a total of 6 years coverage on that knee. And so I always make sure that we recommend that because you're in the business of limiting risk, and that certainly does it. We also, I know that there's a lot of cases that get settled along the way. I've seen this used because you don't have to buy the warranty at the time that you buy the prosthesis. You just have to buy it before the end of the original manufacturer warranty. So I've seen adjusters say, hey, listen, we want to settle this case. Here's what we'll give you. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to buy you an extended warranty. So you're not going to have to worry about getting caught with the price of this thing for at least another 3 years. And that's worked pretty well. This prosthesis is just one that I made years and years ago. And what we have found is that the more that we can customize it to make it feel like part of the person, the easier the whole claim is. I don't know why that just changed. The easier it is to manage the whole file. And so this patient, they liked flames. They had a car that had flames on the side. And so it's not that I was an artist or anything. We just sent them down to Joann's Fabrics, said, buy a yard of material, anything you like. So if you have somebody who's a Gators fan or a 49ers fan, they can go and just buy a yard of material. when the prosthesis is being made, they just wrap that material around it and they use a clear resin, and that person can enjoy everybody seeing what kind of fan they are. I happen to live about 3 miles from Disney World. I had a patient who works at Pirates of the Caribbean there. Over the lifetime that I took care of her, we probably made her 15, 20 different sockets. I can tell you she had every pattern fabric that had skulls and crossbones and swords and everything else. And she purposely wore shorts because she loved when everybody would see her socket that looked so cool. And I can tell you that those are the easiest files to manage, because the only time you wind up hearing from them is when they need something new because it's not fitting and it's hurting. This just shows with and without the cover on it. I can tell you, as I said before, we found that most people today are not asking for covers, but we're still staying on the billings that it comes as part of the prosthesis, and we will tell the provider, no, we've already been speaking with the injured worker and they don't want a cover for it. If they change their mind later, we can always go ahead and get one, but we don't need it right now. The cover is about $1,000. So we just make sure that we're keeping everybody in check. I spoke to you before about thumb socks. Here we have sheets, which are 1 ply, 3 plies, 5 plies. They mix and match them. The one that you see in the middle that has the pin at the bottom, that's just because that person wears a locking pin inside of theirs, and I will show you what that is. This is, well, let me just get this right. This is what the prosthesis would look like, okay? This is a cutaway I did years and years ago, and you'll see that they wear a liner, and that liner has a pin on it, okay? This liner is made of silicone, the same consistency as human fat, and it rolls up on their leg. And this is about $800 to $900. And these have a 6-month warranty on them. But I will tell you, I probably get 8 or 10 requests a day for replacement liners. And so the first thing that we do is we go back and say, okay, when was this put into service? If it's been under 6 months, take it back to the manufacturer, they'll supply it. Nobody has to pay anything for it. And then they just take it and do that. Well, so let's just say that my arm is the residual limb. And what happens is it goes inside this socket and you can see it locks down. Well, if the patient was in here, I could drag them around a football field and it won't come off until I push this button. And this button would be hidden under here if they had a cover on it. And then this just comes out. When I was talking to you before about socket replacements, that's because somebody's leg does not fit all the way in the bottom. It fits in here like this, so there's room. As they start to shrink down and as they start to sink deeper into the prosthesis, they start going down and down and down until they're all the way down the bottom. And then they're going to develop sores and blisters and possible revision surgery. Once they put socks back on, it lifts them back up to where they should be. And of course, you can see here, this is more narrow here than it is up top. And so as they drop deeper down, they think that it's fitting tighter. It's not fitting tighter. It's fitting too loose, which is why they need to add socks to lift them back up. And again, once they get beyond 10 ply, we will be requesting a socket replacement because it's going to take about 4 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks to get that socket replacement made. And we don't want them having a sore or taking off work because their leg's hurting so bad because it's not fitting properly. This I'm going to go through. This just says that when we take molds, we mark bony areas because you can't take pressure on bony areas. It's not just like a round circle, your leg, because we have to take advantage of weight-bearing surfaces, soft tissues, soft muscles versus firm muscles. So these are engineered. And what happens is from the time a injured worker is casted for a prosthesis, the picture all the way on the left, and that's made of plaster, and then we hone it, we alter it, we make it weight bearing, and that takes about a week. And in a week, they have what's called as a check socket made. A check socket is a diagnostic socket. That's what the picture in the middle is, and it's made of clear plastic. It looks like glass. The reason is this is going to be the first time that the components, meaning the foot and the other components, are going to be attached to it. The injured worker is going to stand in between the parallel bars at the prosthetics facility, and they're going to just walk. The clear socket allows the practitioner to see where maybe it's too tight here, maybe it's too loose here. I see he's getting too much pressure here, and he can visually see what's going on. Once the check socket is fit well, because the check socket's going to take a week, so now we're at 2 weeks. If it fits well, they'll go right to fabrication. If it doesn't fit well, they'll go to another check socket. The injured worker needs to wear their prosthesis every single day, all day long. So it has to be right, and that's why we go through these extra steps. After that, it goes to fabrication. These are made of carbon graphite, the same thing the space shuttle was made of. And this would be, because it's very, very strong and very, very light. This would be where they would take that Joann's fabric and wrap it around that mold and use a clear resin. It's very important to make sure that the injured workers are compliant with their follow-up appointments. And here's why. You can see here that there's a lot of different screws, nuts and bolts and things. Well, these are set to specific torque recommendations by the manufacturer. And after everything is set, we use Loctite to make sure that they won't back out. And I will tell you that your new amputees won't do this, but your legacy amputees, your people who've been wearing legs for 10, 15 years, believe me, they get home, they get their wrenches out and they make adjustments to them. And very often they don't re-Loctite it. So what happens is the constant pounding when they hit the ground will give a vibration which will loosen the screws up. And I can tell you, I had a patient who used to work on his own leg against our advice, and he was in New York City getting off of a bus in an intersection, and the top section came apart from the lower section, and he had to hop himself across the street. Okay, so it's very important that they don't work on their own prosthesis and that everything is torqued to specifications. When you don't think about this, but let's say that you weigh 100 pounds and you step off of a curb that's 5 inches tall. When you hit the ground, you hit the ground with 500 inch-pounds of force. That's a lot, okay? But we don't feel it, so you never thought about it. Well, here's why. When you step off of a curb, you have accelerator muscles and decelerators in your shin and your calf that adjust so that you don't feel a jolt when you hit the ground. I'm sure you've stepped off a curb that you didn't realize was there, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, that hurt. Well, that's because your brain didn't engage the decelerator and accelerator muscles. This is probably my favorite part. This is where your big spend is going to be, upper extremity prosthetics. And I will tell you, until I came into workers' comp, I had no idea how many people cut off their fingers, but there's tons of them. Partial fingers, full fingers. And so I wanted to explain to you that there are different devices, okay? Sometimes when it comes to upper extremity, you have somebody, let's say, who's missing their fingers like this. They still have part of their fingers. So they need something that's going to be functional, that's going to replace this motion, okay? And for that, there's things called MCP drivers, PIP drivers, different functional devices, okay? But let's say that now they go home at night and they don't want to wear this and they want to get dressed up and go out, or they're going to an affair or something and they want their hands to look nice. So now there's a cosmetic consideration to make, which is a anatomically correct silicone restoration. So very often it's appropriate for them to have both devices, one functional, one cosmetic. For women, and I'm going to show you these close up, this is a silicone restoration, and you can see how real it looks. It even has fingerprints on it. Here's another one. I mean, this looks about as real as it can be. And then for people who have all their fingers off and need something cosmetic, we have this. I think you'll agree that looks as real as can be. And if they take a ring and they put a ring on the finger and they put a watch where it intersects with their own skin, you wouldn't even know that they're having it. And these can be pre-positioned just to use as an oppositional post. Why we're talking about these silicone fingers and things, these fingers, just so you have a reference, these are going to cost you somewhere around $8,000 to $9,000 each. And these also should last 4 to 5 years. And for females, they use longer fingernails so that, and also the women can paint their fingernails whatever color polish they want on a daily basis. They just use the nail polish remover, take it off, put new nail polish on. And if they wear a ring where it intersects with the rest of the hand, they look amazing. The other thing is that we find is that most of injured workers who lose their arm below the elbow or even above elbow are going to require Myo Electric Prosthetics, okay? And here's why. The amount of function that you have with Myo Electrics far exceeds body powered, and I'm even going to show you videos that you'll be able to see. But before we even consider Myo Electrics, we have to make sure we did our homework. We have to make sure that they are a candidate, that the skin is intact well, that the muscles are working functionally properly. Okay, so there's a lot of homework. They have to be tested so that we can see what their EMG signals are. And the prosthetist does all of this before they make their recommendations to us. So I'm going to show you two prostheses. This is probably 30 years old that I made, but it's a good explanation because I like to explain how these work. Okay. Myo Electrics work off of muscle impulses, okay? So if this is my arm and I want to bend my wrist, nobody, I'm sure, thinks about how does this happen? Well, the brain sends a bolt of electricity to these muscles. When the muscle has electricity introduced to it, it shortens, okay? When it's removed, it'll come back. When you want to extend, the brain will send a bolt of electricity to these muscles. So when you're doing this, you're not thinking about how quick this is all happening, but it's all electrically controlled, okay? So what we do in the prosthesis, you'll see that there's electrodes. This one happens to have 2 of them. Those sit up against the skin, and you'll see I'm just going to touch it. When you touch one, which would be the extension, it opened. When you touch the other one, it closes. And this is a noisy one because it's so old. But these are proportional control, which means that the injured worker can grab a cigarette ash, grab it tight, a cigarette ash without crushing it, or they can crush a walnut with it. Just now when I first put it on, I just touched myself easy so I could get out of it, but see, now I can do it and I can just pull right out of it. But if I want to grab myself and hold it, it's not a matter of strength. It's how long you hold that contraction. And then now it's just grabbing the heck out of me, okay? That's how these Myo Electrics work. You'll notice also that this grabs with the fingertips, okay? And so I'm going to show you another one. That type hand that you saw there, the only times we see those today is if you have an injured worker who's been wearing an arm for over 20 years and they're wearing an unsophisticated arm. They're so used to that thing, they don't want to change, and that's fine, okay? The same thing with hands, microprocessor hands, just like the knees, have extended warranties, which we certainly recommend, so that it gets you throughout the full life cycle of the prosthesis, and maybe even longer. Because if you have a 5-year, hands generally have a 3-year warranty. Some have a 2-year warranty. So if this has a 2-year warranty and this hand alone is going to be about $40,000, okay, you want to make sure that we've got this protected. And we do that by using the extended warranty. And so if we extend this to 5 years and we have it serviced in year 5, it may last another 3-4 years. But for reserve purposes, we say 5 years it should last. Now this, if you look at it, this isn't grabbing with the fingertips. This is grabbing with all of the fingers in different positions. These are called multi-articulating joints. And today we're noticing that more and more amputee upper extremity patients are having what's called as TMRs, targeted muscle reinnervations, which allows them to move each finger of a prosthesis individually. So this is probably one of the most commonly used hands today. And as you can see, I can't grab that out, but this is how these work. And if I grab it here by the thumb, you'll see the other finger still move. And do you notice this finger here? Oh, I'm sorry. Everything's backwards in my camera. So this finger here, the silver part, this is for electronic touches. This is for people who use cell phones and iPads. We have an injured worker who runs a big piece of heavy equipment, and the carrier asked me to work with the employer because they were buying this fella a new tractor just for him to use. And we had all the electronics set up on that side for him. And he just uses this finger right here. And this guy has been at work and does a fantastic job for them. And that's how these work. Sometimes there's also a Myo Electric hook. The Myo Electric hook, to switch them out, show you how quick that happens. So here they are. Okay, imagine now, put abracadabra, now imagine this is a hook. This is how quick they change from one to another. That's it. Okay, so these are very, very durable. They're very, very reliable, okay? And so a Myo Electric prosthesis below the elbow is probably going to wind up costing you somewhere between $80,000 to $100,000. And I say that because it depends really on, do they need a wrist rotator? I will tell you that I always question when I see a wrist rotator. It adds about $8,000, $9,000 to the file. It also, it's a piece of steel that goes at the end of the wrist, so it makes the prosthesis very heavy. And when I ask a prosthetist, why are we the guy's only missing one arm, why are we putting a wrist rotator? And the prosthetist will say, well, if he needs to get in and out of his house in a fire or something, he needs to be able to turn a doorknob. Well, the reality is he's just going to reach with his good hand to do it. It's going to be much quicker, much easier. If you have somebody missing both hands, they need wrist rotators. That's a given. I also want to tell you that when we recommend a Myo Electric prosthesis, we also recommend a body-powered prosthesis. That's what you're seeing the difference. The body-powered has a harness that they wear. It has cables. It has the hook on it. And you'll see that there's a black rubber band down by the hook. That's how you determine what the pinch force is going to be. And so if you were to put 10 rubber bands around that hook, that means each rubber band is about 1 pound of pinch. That means that if you pick something up that's 11 pounds or 12 pounds, it's going to fall out of the hook. But you may say, well, if we're getting the Myo Electric, why would we get the body power? Well, we don't want to spend $80,000 to $100,000 for a prosthesis and have him go deep sea fishing with it. We don't want him out there working on his car with it. We don't want him out there digging in the yard with it. So for those things, they put on the body-powered prosthesis, and it works very well. This just shows above elbow and below elbow. The body-powered prosthesis, those are generally going to be about $12,000 to $15,000. But they use that for all of the things that would damage the electronics. This just shows the satisfaction score with Myo Electrics versus body powered. It's a tremendous difference, but it gives them a good backup prosthesis. There's several different hands. I just showed you a couple. There's probably 15 or 20 different ones. But what I want you to see here is the one up on the top. The one on the top is called eye digits. Eye digits are if somebody has lost, it doesn't matter what fingers, if they've lost their fingers, even with the palm, okay? So if there's no remnant of a finger here, they could use eye digits. And those are Myo Electrics for partial fingers. And as you can see in this, there's a video. If you want to go on YouTube, it's called Making Lunch with Eye Digits. And it's a fantastic video because it shows an injured worker who's missing all his fingers, and he's trying to make lunch, and he's reaching up in the trying to reach up in the cabinet, and you could just feel his angst doing this. And then he's trying to cut his food, and it's very, very difficult. He puts on his eye digits, and he runs that just like you would with two hands. They are absolutely amazing, the level of function they have. One thing that I require all of our vendors that we use to make them, the prosthetic facilities, the manufacturer of that is a company called Oser. They have a place in Dublin, Ohio called TouchLink Academy. Oser pays for airfare to and from the airport. They pay for all the meals. They pay for the hotel. The injured worker and their prosthetist go up there for a week. The prosthetist comes home after 3 days because he's going to be trained on how to field service this unit should anything go wrong with it. The injured worker is there for the whole week. He's there from, well, Monday to Friday. He comes in on Monday, he leaves on Friday, and he leaves with his prosthesis. There's no other it doesn't cost you as the carrier a nickel more. The price is going to be exactly the same, but it is the best delivery of prosthetics that's out there. They also, while they're there, they receive occupational therapy from a occupational therapist who's trained in eye digits, and that's all they do up there is eye digits. So I can tell you out of the last 300 to 400 of these that we've done, we have had 100% success with them, and nobody even has to go back for adjustments or anything. That's how well this program works. Whereas if we had a local facility doing it, then it would be, probably 2 months to get that done. This just shows some of the things that can be done with the multi-articulating fingers. I think that this tells the whole story right here, this video.
To always model, even when I was a kid. I played dress up. I always put on makeup.
There's no other type of hand that could be able to do that except a multi-articulating
I
hand.
just knew that was something that I kind of wanted to do. And I remember my mom would take me to New York City, and I just remember the casting director saying, "There's no chance that you'll ever have a career in this industry. I mean, you're technically handicapped." That was really hard for, a 13-year-old to kind of take in. And so I kind of gave up after that. It wasn't until, I was 22 or 23 that I decided that maybe I should give it another shot. And having the prosthetic hand has made a world of difference. People notice me now, people recognize me, and it's just, yeah.
Now, remember what I said about the badge of courage? This young lady can certainly afford a silicone restoration that would go over that prosthesis, that would make it look like very difficult to see, okay? That's her badge of courage. That's what she needs to function. So again, being able to take that off at the angles, each finger move individually to hold her curling iron. These are, I don't think that these are really wants. I think these are things that they need to be able to have high levels of function. This is an eye digits right here. They also have, if you're not going with eye digits, and let's say if you're not off right at the palm, but you have parts of the fingers, okay, then you would use the manual positioning fingers. Those are fingers that are required that they have to ratchet them into place to grab something, and then when they're done, they ratchet them back. These are just some things you can do. On these hooks, the hooks at the top are the hooks for body-powered prosthetics. The ones at the bottom are Myo Electric hooks. And the reason that I show this is that we had a early intervention gentleman who lost his injured worker, lost his arm below the elbow. I was able to talk with him 2 days before. It was a great success story. And he said to me, "Jan, my hobby is that I love to race cars. I have 3 racing cars that all have stick shifts." And this was his right arm. He said, "And how am I going to be able to shift in this?" Right? Well, the problem is, even with this Myo Electric, you can't see through the back of the hand here. So it's obscured to where he's trying to grab the shift. So what we did is we got him, I said, "Well, let's get you acclimated. Let's make sure that everything's working successfully, and then we'll talk with your adjuster." We did, and we said the bottom right hook made sense. And the adjuster said, "Yeah, let's go for it. This guy's been great to work with." He takes that hook and he doesn't grab it like this, but he turns it upside down. And he turns it upside down and he grabs the shift knob with it. And this guy had somebody in the car with him taking a video that he sent me of him doing 160 miles an hour around the track. That injured worker, the only time we heard from him is when his socket didn't fit. He didn't ask for anything. And he even said, when this all started, everybody was telling me he needed to get a lawyer. And he said, "Why? There's nothing I need that's not being provided for me." Very quickly on orthotics, because I know we're just about out of time. I think that all doctors like to write the word custom on a prescription. Custom brace, custom knee brace, okay? So if this is an ACL brace, there's 100 different types, okay? The doctor writes custom, that means that it's gonna cost you an extra $500 to $900 per device, okay? They're all held on with Velcro today. They're all adjustable. And even though this is an off the shelf, you see the radius here? Even though this is off the shelf, if that person's thigh has more of an arc to it, that's all the That's all the practitioner has to do to change it. So off-the-shelf braces are adjustable. And so what we do is we call the doc and we'll say, Doc, is there any reason this needs to be custom? And the doc always says, no, I just want the thing to fit. Well, we're going to send them to somebody who's qualified and certified to make sure it fits properly. So that winds up to be a $500 to $900 savings. That's extremely important to know, because what happens, I'm sure if you've had your prosthetic files, the doctors do not know what to write. They do not know what to prescribe. So they rely on the prosthetist, and they'll say to the prosthetist, hey, tell me what you need and I'll sign it. So they sign it and they really have no idea. Sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes some of the stuff isn't appropriate. And so that's why we have to keep a close eye on what is ordered. And sometimes what happens is, we'll call the doc and say, hey doc, you ordered a microprocessor for this guy that he's a K3. This guy's in a wheelchair, he's using a walker, he's not a K3. And the doc will say, I know, but I felt sorry for him. Well, that doesn't mean that the carrier should wind up paying for 2 microprocessors as compared to 2 body, mechanical knees. So this just shows the different types of braces. We like to use acronyms. Sometimes if somebody has a pendulous abdomen and they're wearing a back brace, it may need to be custom, but most of the times it probably doesn't. If you have a woman who's pregnant, she's going to go through 3 back braces during her pregnancy because you can't have pressure on the abdomen, and it has to be adjusted for that. We always try to make sure that we give a logical, reasonable explanation of why this is happening. So with that, if you have questions, let me know. As I said, if you need to just bounce something off me, I'm always easy to contact, very, very responsive. And so I can help make your life a lot easier in managing your prosthetic patients. And listen, this doesn't just apply to your new injured workers. I'm sure you have legacy amputees out there, and those legacy amputees, they're on cruise control with their providers. And sometimes when I get involved, the provider will say to me, how come you're involved in it? Well, there's a new sheriff keeping an eye on things. We trust you, but we want to verify. We want to make sure, because I never want to be embarrassed by recommending something to a carrier and them saying, why'd you do this? And me have to say, well, I want to make sure you have that answer up front of why we're making these decisions. Sometimes they're expensive decisions and you know it, and nobody likes to spend the money, but it's the right thing to do. And out of all the CEUs and talks I've done over the years, I have yet to come across a carrier that doesn't want to do the right thing. What you're looking for is an appropriate device at an appropriate price. So with that, I thank you. Are there any questions?
Dan,
Jan, I have a question.
Yes.
You're talking appropriate device, appropriate price, and I appreciate that. But I'm wondering, the video that you showed of the young woman doing her hair with the articulating arm and becoming a model, why is that not appropriate for everybody? Because we all started with articulating body parts. Why wouldn't that just be the normal thing to give to any amputee for a hand or arm?
Well, most of the time it is, okay? But as an example, I have some injured workers that I follow who live out in the middle of the woods, and all they do is hunt and fish, and they're in the dirt all the time. If somebody's in the dirt all the time and they don't have a secondary prosthesis, then the Myo Electric doesn't make sense, because it's just going to keep breaking down, okay? They are extremely reliable. When I say, I hate to even say that they can break down, because they really don't do that often, okay? Out of the hundreds and hundreds that we have, that we oversee, I can probably name 3 or 4 that have broken down in the past 2 years, where the manufacturer overnight at a loaner unit. But for the most part, and that's why I said in the beginning, workers' comp, most of these injured workers, they were healthy, active people before who did a lot of things with their hands. If somebody's going to be doing, let's say we have people who work with caustic materials, chemicals and things, Myo Electric's not appropriate for that, okay? But the question always begs to be answered, but what about when they go home and they're not working? What about when they're out socially? They don't want to wear a hook, okay? They want to wear something that's going to be functional and fascinating. And when I had a large pediatric practice years ago, kids, people would call them Captain Hook all the time. It was horrible for the kids until we changed some of the thinking and said, put these kids in Myo Electric, because now they go from being stared at and a curiosity that's Captain Hook to something that's fascinating, because everybody's fascinated watching them use these, right? And now they become a center of attention, which again, psychosocially is a big deal.
Okay, so we do have a question. You just showed that great hand. So the question is, do you match fingerprints?
No, we don't, because here's what happens. When they do these silicone restorations, right? When they do this, a mold is taken of the good thumb or the good finger. And then that mold is reversed, engineered. So the thumbprint that's on it is the thumbprint, let's say, from the right hand, but now they're going to wear it on the left hand. Okay.
Got it. Well, that answers Stephanie's questions. Wendy, do you have anything that you would like to add to the, any last thoughts or anything?
You're on mute.
Okay, so we can't hear Wendy right now. Darcy, would you like to conclude on something?
I would just like to say thank you guys for having us today. Always love this 12 Days of Christmas CEU. Macro Pro is awesome. And I want to wish everybody a happy holiday, and to please reach out to me or Jan anytime. We're available 24/7 for any of your questions.
All right, well, Jan, that was an excellent program. I think,
Thank you.
prosthetics is a little mysterious to so many of us, and you did a phenomenal job helping us understand what the injured worker goes through and what options we have. So this afternoon, we have yet another 12 days of CEUs available. So it is going to be on reopening new and future benefits. So we want to make sure that you join us for that at 1:30. The other thing also is we do have 2 more webinars on Friday. So go to the Macro Pro website and sign up for those if you haven't already. Until this afternoon, we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye now.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us.